What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some J-drama score, and we're back with the first proper reaction to a show I have talked about in a couple other soundtrack/score reactions, and that is Kurokochi, as it's called in sort of the English title, which is admittedly the name of the manga that it's based on. But the name in Japanese and the name of the main character is Kurokochi. Now, Kuro in Japanese means black, and so like Kurokochi in the context of the show and the character, going back to the manga, it's a cop who's trying to unravel some misdeeds and injustices and mysteries about a real crime that actually happened in Japan in the late 60s, mid 60s, I think it's like 66. There was a robbery in Japan, for real. Of 300 million yen, roughly about $3 million US. And it was perpetrated by a guy who pretended to be a bike cop who pulled over a car full of bank executives who were transferring money, like in a non-discreet car. They weren't trying to draw attention to it with an armored vehicle, but somehow the fake cop knew about it. Got the people out of the vehicle, like, oh, there's a bomb in there, you have to get out. And they all rushed out, and he looked under the car and secretly planted a flare which made smoke come out, so the people really thought it was a bomb. They all ran away. The guy jumped in the car and drove away with 300 million yen. And officially, no one was ever caught. And it's sort of, considered this great unsolved crime of Japan in the 20th century. And this show basically takes a speculation on what may have happened. It basically says, like, this is a hypothesis for what happened. And so it explores, possibility, and it does come to a definitive, theorization as to what might have happened. But basically it's historical fiction. It's working off a real historical event, a real unsolved crime, and then this story tries to fill in the details and say, what if the story was like this? But Kurokochi, again, it would mean like, sort of a coach or master of the dark arts, and the reason that's relevant is Kurokochi, the main character, is a detective, a pretty high-ranking one, but the more you get to know him, the more you see that he just bends any rule that he finds inconvenient. He bribes or blackmails officials to get information that he needs. And so it's funny, there's two actors, one actress, one actor in this who I've been talking about in relation to another show, Angels and Demons, and again, Ron, you may recognize both Atsura Watabe, who plays a very different character in this, villainous, antagonistic, and then Gorike Ayame, who plays basically the same character as Angels and Demons, but because her partner in this show, Kurokochi, is very different from her partner in Angels and Demons, the way this kind of young and a bit naive detective plays out and what happens to her character and so on over the course of the show is very different from Angels and Demons. And again, it's because Kurokochi, played by lead singer of Tokyo, Nagase Tomoya, again, he is trying to figure out what happened with this ancient, not ancient, but 1960s robbery. He's also trying to uncover, as you come to learn over the first couple episodes, what happened to this woman who seems to be his girlfriend, or who was his girlfriend. She was killed in a fire, which was set deliberately. And so he's trying to figure out what happened to her. So again, he'll intimidate, he'll beat someone up to get information, he'll, again, threaten or blackmail, like, officials that he has dirt on, and so on. And it's all to get to the truth of what happened. And so early on, Goriki Ayame's character sees this behavior, and she's like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm going to report you to the superiors because you're just crazy, like, you're unlawful, whatever. And he's like, look, wait, and he sort of explains kind of what he's trying to figure out, and he sort of gives a sense to her of the gravity that, people have died trying to figure out what happened with this. And there's obviously some powerful people who don't ever want anyone to know. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep trying to uncover it. Well, you're supposed to be my partner, but you know what? You don't want to come with me? Fine, don't come with me. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to judge what is wrong and right. And I think you're going to find that it's not as simple as it's, cut and dry, black and white. You're going to have to see the ambiguity and the sort of mixed character of some decisions, because sometimes, maybe bending a rule to get at a greater truth and bring about justice is justified. Though again, like, the whole point of the show, and indeed he's essentially talking to the audience too, not just to his partner, but he's basically saying, watch all 10 episodes, then you tell me who you think is right, because indeed you eventually find out that, this character, among some others, is sort of antagonistic and seems to be involved in at least a more recent cover-up of what happened farther back. But then you come to find that some of his decisions at least make sense in the context in which they happen. So it's a complicated show, and that's kind of the point. Like, you know, who's right or wrong in a very complicated situation? You decide. So it's a cool show. It's funny, even though it's more of a serious show than you typically see Nagase Tomoya, and he tends to be in a lot of comedies. There is comedy here, absolutely, every episode, but it's more of a serious show. It's more of kind of a dark, you know, kind of wicked, you know, whodunit mixed with political intrigue. But we're going to listen to a tune that is essentially one of the running themes. There's, you know, a couple themes that, you know, I mentioned. Nagase Tomoya is the lead singer of Tokyo, Tokyo, Japanese rock band, and one of their songs is one of the themes of the show. But one of the other themes is called Jupiter, and the reason it's called Jupiter is because, those of you who know, I reacted to all of Gustav Holst's planets from his Planet Suite, and arguably the most famous movement in that is the Jupiter movement, Jupiter the bringer of jollity. Well, this piece is the melody from Jupiter, Bringer of Jollity by Holst, and indeed it lists in the soundtrack here the original composer of the tune as Gustav Holst, but then it's arranged with a female vocal articulation of the main melody, and it's genius, it's beautiful, and it comes in at a lot of really like dramatic moments, sometimes, you know, a bit more like reflective or whatever. In one case, they like find someone they've been working with dead. They're supposed to meet him, and they turn up and he's dead, and this music plays as his body's like floating in the water, and it's like, oh my god, it's wicked. So again, shout out to Gustav Holst. Now there's two composers who worked on this soundtrack. The first one is Deiwa Yoshiaki, but he did not compose the tune in question. The second composer is a woman. Her name is Habuka Yuri, and Habuka Yuri is the one who arranged Gustav Holst's melody in this vocal articulation. So with all that set up, this is Kurokochi, and the tune is Jupiter from the 2000, is it 15? Give me 1 second, let me make sure I got that right. The show, no, 2013, glad I looked. Yeah, the show's from 2013. As I said, this is Habuka Yuri's arrangement of Gustav Holst's Jupiter. Hold on, that was a little hot. Let me start that over. I do apologize. Okay, here we go. Maybe. Great vocal quality. I don't know if Habuka Yuri is the one who sung that. It doesn't say it just says the credit for the arrangement. But whoever sung that, if it is her or whoever the vocalist actually is, that's a really great performance. And again, to like be that sort of on your own and exposed in that last moment and to still sound that good is fantastic. Yeah, I love the original piece by Holst, Jupiter the Bringer of Jollity. Again, I have reacted to it on the channel. Check out my classical playlist. But that's a really great articulation. That, like, I love the idea of taking that melody, putting it in a vocal version, and kind of stripping down the tune. The original, you know, it has kind of a full orchestral feel and a lot of the like warm consonant parts. This feels a bit more sort of light and delicate, austere, and a bit more dramatic and like atmospheric. Now again, part of that is maybe that I'm thinking about, that one scene in particular that I mentioned, but yeah, it sort of changes a bit of the atmosphere of the tune. I almost like this sort of rendering better. But once again, I wanted to mention how cool it is that so many Japanese shows have like a full proper soundtrack that you can buy. It does just go to show the attention to musical quality that I think a lot of Japanese serial drama has. And that's not to say that I haven't heard some great score at American shows and British shows and so on, which I absolutely have. But yeah, I really think that J-drama takes the time and effort to put really good music into their shows. And in some cases, like it's kind of under dialogue and you can barely hear it, whatever. But then when you focus on it, it's like, wow, it's good. And then, they give you the opportunity. You want to hear that piece independent of the dialogue and whatever, we give you the opportunity. So once again, shout out to that. I will say this image is very prominent. I mentioned the late girlfriend of the main character, Kurokochi. This was sort of her room. She was trying to uncover what had happened. So yeah, there's a lot of drama and intrigue in the show. Do let me know what you think of the tune. I will see you next time.